Peace and blessings, family. Sister Audrey. This is Brittany Mason, model. I don't go over or try to acclaim people based on what they look like, because I think we're all in a healing modality. Some of us are in full-fledged sickness, whiteism sickness. And so it's really, a hit or miss over what qualifies as beautiful anymore. And I tend to pivot on who you are. And in the case of Brittany Mason, she is still in the living category of tenses. So she still, it's all up to her who she wants to be. I have nothing untowards, where I'm really just upset. Swirlers, I'm just going to be upset with you. And I mean the men and the women. But to be a Negropean, it's hard not to be a Negropean when you got all of white civilization informing us of what is important in life, what matters in life. So I have no anger, hatred for Negropeans. I'm just doing my best to be a part of an alternative mindset that makes absolute sense. There's no other way around it. It's separation. And there's all kinds of nuances within that. But in order to separate and be a viable civilization ourselves that's actually civilized, there are lots of propaganda. There's lots of just proposals coming from whiteism that we've taken as it's the real us, and no, it's not. As Brother Iyapo says, and he says so many profound things, and I love this one so much. The closer in proximity we are to white people, the more insane we tend to be. And so this young lady lives in the same building as another model, Melissa Mooney, who was found murdered just a couple days ago. And ordinarily, what happened is Brittany is trying to get out of her lease because she doesn't feel safe. Now, if this had just been one woman who had been murdered, I would sit back and I would say, as a Black single woman, you are really clueless to think that because you are in a well-to-do, whatever that means to, neighborhood of white people, that you are safer, because they present this fantasy about themselves that they just are so much more calm and law-abiding, and they love the little animals too, even though they're the ones who came up with the whole idea of factory farming. And so Brittany wants to get out of her lease, understandably, but the landlord's not going to allow it. I guess it'll be determined probably privately, because if it bleeds, it leads, and I don't want her potential demise to be a headline story. I want her to be able to just say, look, I gotta go. I'll take the financial repercussions, whatever, because my life is worth it. But as long as she's living in this environment, and she might just move to the next one, because she might be making the assumption, because there's a story going around that this is probably a serial murderer, because this is the other well-to-do apartment building that Nicole Coates was found dead within by her aunt and her father. Now, as you can see, these crimes, horrors, happened within 2 days of each other. They were both models, and the manner in which their lives were taken were similar. Now, I'm saying their lives were taken, but the police department is claiming that Nicole Coates She died under non-suspicious circumstances, and more than likely the landlord is using the determination from the police as an excuse for not letting Sister Brittany out of her lease, even though that in itself, to me, that's a crime because it puts other Black women in danger, even though the aunt and the father found Nicole Coates' body in a terrifying state. And the way they describe it, it doesn't sound like an unsuspicious death. That's what the police are calling it. Whereas with the death of Sister Melissa, they're saying that that was definitely homicide. The family of Nicole Coates say the place was a mess. And the last thing she said before she was found dead was she was going on a date. And then she was dead. And so for the fact that the place is a mess, and then we've got white society doing the investigating as to what happened, their impulse is to keep things quiet, keep people calm down, because they don't want Black you and me getting out there and screaming, cover up, when that's what they do. This young lady, I don't recall her name. I'll put the thumbnail where you could click on this video that I did covering a young lady, sister, who was murdered in Princeton, but the coroner ruled her death a suicide. And her parents came out saying they wondered, she was Ethiopian, and they said the area where they found her body, it was within a lot of trees. When I did this report, she was just missing. Or I don't know, I guess she wasn't missing. But they found her in a heavily wooded area. And so they really don't believe that she would have killed herself, especially not in an area like that. We've heard of that type of scenario. I remember Dr. Timothy Cunningham, who was giving evidence to a little bit more than I'm sure they wanted him to give evidence to. He was a medical lead of, I don't know if it was the CDC, but he was a person who was fastidious in what he did during the day. He was clockwork, and he always called his parents. He always made sure there was food for the dog, and suddenly he just leaves his wallet, his keys, everything, and he's found dead in a river. And the coroner ruled it a suicide, and nothing of the sort was true, but the family did no further investigating whatsoever. And whatever the authorities, the recognized authorities say, who they've built an entire system stacked against us, that's what the families went with. And I do believe that's the same thing that happened with this young lady. And then there was a second woman who her dorm door was banged in, and someone wrote, "Be nicer," all caps with a big old exclamation mark. And my warning is, with these swirlers, they make all of us as Black women, they make our lives far more precarious because they are so bowed down, so completely over the top, understanding of white people, and they do no research into who they are whatsoever. I mean, I could do a 5-hour share just going over all the headlines of the things that these folks have done in perpetuity. It was a doctor, what was his name? Harold Mitchum or something or other. And he just went around killing elderly people whenever he felt like it. And then there were, in Scotland, there was these brothers who they literally would collect cadaver bodies and sell them to this other doctor who knew that they were killing their guests that they had at their own inn. And they wound up killing like dozens and dozens of people. And that's just like the light murderers. And so to just assume that for some reason these folks are better, when Brother Yapo shared with me this report, Patterns of Middle and Upper Class Homicide. I'm going to put a link to this because there's a breakdown of the stats on how rich, well-to-do black people are in comparison to everybody else, and the white people too, who are also of an equal financially comfortable position in terms of criminality, and especially in terms of homicide. And it's non-existent. It's non-existent when it comes to black us who commit crimes, because it's just simply not in our nature. It's something that has to be just infused into us, brought into our desperation by making us desperate. That's the same way it is with all groups of people. When you study the Irish, they have high rates of crime because they have been so systematically trounced by the British. And this is across the board with the Inuit people. They fill up the prisons more than the white people. And so Brother Yapo, he said that after they did this one study, they never bothered doing it again because they did not want it to be obvious that when we get to a certain level, like right here with the 0, we're good. We don't feel like hurting folks. So this dude right here, he beheaded his Indonesian father-in-law after their business started going all wrong. White dude living all up in Indonesia. I bet you the family he married into, ugly as he is, oh my God. Yeah, I guess he thought that everything was going to be successful because a lot of times Asian people, just like you can have black people do the same thing, will brag on themselves and pretend that they're about so much more than they actually are. And in Asian societies, the in-laws, the children, they're expected to get in line to the hierarchy. It's a very hierarchical society, all of them. And so I don't know the particulars of this, but dude beheaded his own father-in-law. I bet, like I say, they were, oh my goodness, she married this, oh my God, this white man. They were so happy, I bet, so happy. They didn't do any research. Hey, just like this guy right here this black guy who was all on board. Doesn't he look like he was all on board for the injectable thing? He was on camera doing, we're about to, let's see. And I'm only saying this because he's alive too. So that's good, right? But here he is in his big old fancy house, and his neighbor hosed him down and his guests because they were having a celebration, and at about 9:50 p.m., didn't even wait till 10 p.m., didn't even say anything. Could you please keep it down? Just hose them down like they were cattle. And I will not forget Darian Towns, who hated black us, even though I see at a wedding a bunch of black people. She was drowned in a swimming pool, plenty of white folks all around the place, but they swore later on, we don't know what happened to her. Nobody was ever arrested. There were no investigations. It reminds me of the adult pajama party thing, where also a black woman who had a tendency to keep proving to her white neighbors that she was just the nicest, most un-black-like person ever. Right? And she was married to a black man. She had black children. I'm sorry for them. that they lost their mom, but nobody was brought to justice. She was at a house filled with cops and wives of cops and people who worked at the police station who took all the records and burned them. Okay? And so I said it before, I say it again. How can you be nicer to a violent person who doesn't see you as a person? You can't, right? All you could do is recognize this is a dangerous neighborhood. These models, and they would never, I'm quite sure, move back on into the hood. And two of them, unfortunately, my condolences. It is a horrific crime to kill someone, to be a victim of the violence of an insane person, no matter who you are, okay? But I'm just saying, these young ladies, they might have been safer, especially in this day and age where they're stoking white people to lose a gasket. And they will. They don't feel committed to us. They have no reason to empathize with us. The system has been working for them. As it's collapsing, they don't mean it's collapsing in a way which is going to make them freer. They mean it's collapsing is that it protects their fragile sense of who they are. And so they don't get stronger. They don't puzzle into, well, geez, we're killing the Pacific Ocean. Could there possibly be something wrong with us? That troubles them, that question. And so right now at this time, your most protective actions as a Black woman is don't rush into any relationships with a Black man, because you can make a really terrible choice, right? And I believe in traditional relationships where you acknowledge that your man should never be a man who's trying to look for a second mommy, right? He should be a leader. But that means you can't just be a leader because you act like you're a big friggin' jerk. No, you have to be somebody who contemplates the people who are around you so that the decisions that you're making are sane and solid. Dr. Z, oh my goodness, that man is like, he has earned my fidelity because of his actions, not because I just, I'm like, I got to be with a man. I need a man. Yes, I do. But I need a sane one. I don't need a fool. Okay? So I don't recommend rushing to find a brother, but I'm just saying, be an honorable woman. And good men are going to find you. If you're in honorable establishments and events and organizations, they're going to find you. They're going to be so ecstatic to meet you because they're talking so many Black women into thinking that we are cattle and we have to show off our body parts in public. In public. I'm not saying not as many as the white chicks out there. Oh my goodness. Those hella weird starlets are just foaming at the mouth to show side boob. Right? But I'm just saying, this is the time where you want those connections where people understand what the hell's going on. Because these dudes are they already at war with us, but they are fearful they're losing. The UN has just held a whole friggin' agenda gauntlet of meetings over how censorship helps us to have more freedom of speech. And that's because the fire's on them to get the results out. They are employees of the satanic elite, and they're not getting the job done. It can't be done because the satanic elites have blown smoke up their own behinds, thinking that we, just regular people down here, we ain't down here, we're actually up here, okay? But they think that we're idiots. They've been flattering themselves for generations that we're stupid, and we're not. They're stupid. It is stupid to believe you can fearmonger, you can terrify, same thing, folks into behaving like cows. They've gotten away with a lot of it, but that's because that was at a point where we were so traumatized by enslavement that we were still learning. And also just all people across the board didn't understand group self-protection. And so that you have a right. It's not cruel to say that whole group of people over there, we got nothing in common with them. And we're wonderful people. We're so open. And we got to close it down now, okay? We got to separate. We can still be polite. I don't wish anybody any harm. But I'm just saying, this is a time we separate. And even if it costs you some money to get it started, you ain't got but one life. Now, Dr. Z put together this website, 25,000 Year Cycle. That brother is working tirelessly to provide real healing. And I mean, he has just completely opened my eyes so that I am experiencing the most heightened moment of fitness I have ever known. I am stronger and healthier and more energetic than I was when I was in my 20s. I could have just ran myself into the ground if I met 20-year-old me right now, okay? She wouldn't stand a chance. So come get the consultations while you can, because in a real short while, I think he said October 22nd, consultations will no longer be free, which makes perfect sense. Oh, and then there goes my soap. So I could just keep going down the line with the amazing remedies that are all up here. We who know, we are building just sane alternatives for each and every single one of us. So we don't have to try to argue with the devil or get out of a lease when we own the whole daggone planet. And the Most High said, ask for it back and I'm going to give it to you, okay? So there you go. We got this. You got this. Ain't no fear-mongering here. There's just sharing our victory. I love you. Straight Black family pride. And we are out of this hell. Peace and blessings.